Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I hope everybody has enjoyed the cocktail hour as well as enjoyed the food this evening. I'd like to first start the evening by thanking the members of the 102nd Army Band out of Rockville, Connecticut, not only for their wonderful performance this evening prior to dinner, but also for their service to our country. So, gentlemen, thank you. You know, as I look out on the room this evening, it reaffirms to me that the Patterson Club is a very special place. It's wonderful to see everybody out this evening, and I want to personally thank you for supporting not only this event, but for your kind support of our veterans. 5 years ago, a good friend of mine, Ray Ford, and also Brendan DeLuey, you'll meet both of them shortly, they started an event at Rolling Hills to support the Folds of Honor Foundation. I'm very happy that this year the Patterson Club can continue to move that event forward in success. And this year we could also add another military foundation to our fundraising efforts, Met PGA Hope. I've been supportive of veterans and the Folds of Honor for many years. However, it's two events in the year of 2015 that had a profound effect on my life and has led us to this evening. In the spring of 2015, I want to thank Kelly Clayton, who works for the Metropolitan PGA of America, who's sitting in the back of the room here. Kelly put together our first Met PGA Hope class, which met in West Point. You'll learn a little bit more about this as the evening goes on, but this is a tremendous program that is affecting veterans in our area. Later that summer, I was at Rolling Hills at Ray's event, and I had the privilege to sit in on an evening just like this and to listen to some speakers, and it really hit home for me. So many of us, we can sit and see a charity, we can see a foundation that raises money, we can give money to these foundations. But the time that I spent at these two events made it real for me. At West Point, at the graduation dinner, I sat with a gentleman that goes by the name of Z-Man. And Z-Man is quite a guy. He started the evening out, he was very thankful and appreciative of everything that we had done over the last several weeks, introducing him to the game of golf. He told me, he said, you know, he goes, I thought golf was the dumbest game in the world. He goes, they asked me 3 times to do this, and the only reason I even did this is because I wanted them to stop asking me. He said, but I have to tell you what, he goes, I'm really sad. See, at this point, they didn't realize that we had also set up a league for them and an opportunity for them to play golf at West Point, at their golf course. And he said, you know what? He goes, this game is awesome. He goes, it's given me my life back. And it's given my friends their lives back, too. And you know, I sat there and I said, wow. I said, you know, I was about 13 years old when I started playing golf. And I was probably somewhere around 20 when I decided I wanted to make it my profession. And probably nowhere in that journey did I realize how powerful the game that we all play every week and that we all have so much fun playing could be. It is truly an amazing game when we put our efforts together. There's truly amazing people that are around this game. And for that, these gentlemen have had some great times. The Z-Man's enjoying himself, and you know, golf has become part of what his life is. But again, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Again, the game of golf is so powerful. It's why we all sort of have come together, and it's a vehicle for us to support and to show our respect to the men and women who have served our country and to the families of those soldiers that have given it all. So at this time, I'm going to invite my good friend Ray Ford up. And Ray Ford is going to talk a little bit more about Met PGA Hope and what it's about.
Good evening. Still get chills thinking about that evening, the graduation, which I'm going to talk about here. But first of all, I want to thank Chris Kenny and the Patterson Club and the staff here for hosting this important event. It means a lot to me. And to keep the momentum here at Patterson that we started 4 or 5 years ago with Brendan, my co-chair. So I can't thank you enough. We've come a long way. And I think we've raised just under $500,000 to date for the Fulton Honor Foundation, and now we're going to try and continue for the Met PGA Hope. So I approached Chris about 10 months ago to see how we could merge not only Folds of Honor, because our goal is to keep continuing to raise as much, if not more, each year. That's certainly my goal. Brendan and I, each year, that's our goal. But Chris had an even bigger mission to merge two clubs to try and team up together. So I couldn't ask for a better person to team up for. And I know you all know Chris as the consummate professional, hardworking. Actually, I know him as that person too. But I also know Chris as a caring, compassionate person who always gives back. And he gives back all the time, which is why we're here tonight. So you don't win a lot of awards. I couldn't believe you emailed me today the award he's won. I'm like, well, I'm not going to list all those because this isn't about you, Chris. But anyhow, so he's just a great guy, and just so honored that he's a part of this with Brendan and I. So. So without getting too long up here, I just want to take a brief step backwards in how I got involved. About 8 years ago, I listened to, and Brendan will cover Folds of Honor, but I listened to a gentleman named Major Dan Rooney in a fundraising effort. I'm sorry, it was an educational seminar for our section. I didn't know who Major Dan was. I just heard about the Folds of Honor Foundation. And just after one speech that he gave, I was so inspired. I knew I wanted to run something to continue this important mission. So I always wanted to do something for the military. I didn't know how to do it, so that was a perfect calling for me. And here we are today. And so on this mission that we've raised for Folds of Honor, last year I was introduced to a new initiative called PGA Hope, which Chris just spoke about. And it's an initiative through the PGA Reach, which is a charitable arm of the PGA of America. So I volunteered and trained to learn how to teach our veterans. So I just thought I was just teaching golf to our veterans. So PGA Hope is a 6-week adaptive golf program offered free of charge by our golf professionals for donating their time that utilizes golf as a rehabilitation tool to improve the veterans' quality of life. So I happened to get firsthand on how this happened, and going back to spin off Chris's experience at the graduation. So 6 weeks, I would leave Rolling Hills, about an hour and 45-minute drive to West Point. And the first time I went up there, I was like, well, it's an awful long drive, but volunteer my time. Well, I couldn't wait to get back there the next week. It was such an incredible experience, and nothing against our members of Rolling Hills and bringing and teaching golf to my members, but driving an hour and 45 minutes, I look forward to it each time I went up there. And I can't tell you how rewarding it was to teach these military veterans. And so Chris was just talking about the graduation. So the graduation was the greatest night that I've ever experienced as a PGA member, listening to his name Zeke. I didn't know his name. Zeke Man. We had also the Snoop Dogg was the other guy. Two of the greatest speeches I've ever heard. These were eloquently, they weren't planned speeches, they were right from the heart, and I cried both speeches, and I get chills thinking of them right now. And I want to thank Kelly, who's done an amazing job for PGA Hope. It's just amazing what you're doing, so thank you. And at that moment, just like Chris said, it was why I became a PJ member, and it hit home with me. So the rest of this, I'm going to read to you what PJ Hope is doing to date. Since Met PJ Hope's inception in the spring of 2015, we have served 170 veterans, and by the end of this year, there will be 250 graduates of this program. The success of our program can be directly attributed to the dedication of our golf professionals, our local clubs, and the strong relationship that we have built with our veterans to date. After graduating the Met PJ Hope program, our veterans are given a set of golf clubs to continue their golf journey. They are invited to play in our military league, and we encourage them to use their Hope card to receive discounts at area clubs and ranges. The success stories that emerge from this program are inspirational and continuously prove that golf is in its purest state, has the power to change and even save lives. And I witnessed it. I'll tell you one more story at that graduation. This gentleman, Zeke, said when he's over the golf ball for the 6 seconds or whatever it hits the golf ball, his mind is clear. He's thinking about his swing. He's not thinking about anything except golf. And let me tell you what, that's important for these guys. You can't believe that how important it is for them. So I forgot to include that before. But so with this tremendous growth comes with the need of financial support to continue our mission. Your donation will directly benefit local veterans and support the financial needs of the program, which, as mentioned before, includes training equipment, adaptive devices, course fees, and providing every graduating veteran a set of golf clubs to continue their golf journey. We have also utilized donations to establish a Veterans League for our graduates. They love that. And I believe they won the little Ryder Cup match in New Jersey, which you'll hear about. And have plans on launching a vocational training program for those veterans looking to secure employment in the golf industry. This really is pretty cool because our next speaker, Ricky Salecchio, is actually considering getting golf as a result of PGA Hope. So I want to welcome Ricky here, and anyone here. Are we introducing PGA Hope yet? Oh, do the video first? Okay, sorry. We're going to play the video first.
In the first session, I thought of them as fragile. Not much enthusiasm, not much laughter.
You know, we've all had different issues, went through a substance abuse program, PTSD.
Program's called PGA Help. Help our patriots everywhere. We're going to treat them like the royalty they are.
We've spent the past 6 weeks kind of teach them and introducing them to the game of golf, and kind of like, you know, a release.
Look at the smile on his face. First time I seen it smile in 8 weeks. No, 6 weeks. Really good. That's good, man. I need a lot. Good place to go.
I've seen a dramatic change in their personalities.
Now you can see them walk off the box and it's high fives, it's hugs. They are so excited.
Watch out, Tiger, here comes the line.
They couldn't stop talking about it.
That's the one I love, man. That's the one
I love my clubs. You can see them, they're really neat. I got a nice, beautiful bag full of golf clubs. I don't know how to use every single one of them yet.
That's right.
You know, a lot of people would say, wow, to get a house or a car, these clubs to us, they give us a chance to be out there and get involved, you know. It's great, man. Wow.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
PGA Hope has gone above and beyond any expectation to really heal a veteran.
When I'm playing golf out there, I'm not thinking about any of my problems.
Good practice, Slim. Excellent practice.
And enjoy the game.
Yeah, there you go. You just joking with the first one.
What was most humbling to see was how passionate the pros were and how involved they were with our veterans.
These guys really care.
Pro golfers coming out and helping us find something that we can enjoy. It was just fabulous.
Nice.
What I'm doing for them to help my fellow vets is all that matters for them. Because they give so much. Some of these guys give everything.
It's more than just a game to a lot of these guys. It's going to be a lifesaver.
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Ricky Selecchio, and I hope I didn't pronounce your name wrong. Ricky, come on up. How's everybody doing? Don't lie, come on, we're out here having dinner and drinks. It's a beautiful night, we're having a great night. This is way nicer than any place I've ever been. Much better than Chow Hall. So, let me give you a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm not a professional public speaker, so do not hold that against me. I joined the Army at 18 years old. I enlisted on my 18th birthday. Funny that 15 years ago today, I was sitting in my living room watching everything happen with my father, and I remember my dad looking at me and saying, you know, I wish I wasn't going to have to say this to you, but now you're going to witness a war in your lifetime. And at 14 years old, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I was watching something on TV that looked like a movie. And then I started hearing friends and family members just distraught over the fact that they had lost a loved one or a friend or a first responder that they knew. And it really, for some reason, it just hit me in a place that really, really drove me to want to do something about it. And so I looked at my father and I said, Dad, when I turn 18, I'm going to join the Army. And he looked at me like he did every time I said something at 14 years old, like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then I turned 17 and I heard you could enlist at 17. And you could go to basic between your junior and senior year. And so I said to my parents, I said, Mom and Dad, I went and talked to a recruiter and I want to enlist. And they said, you're out of your mind. And I said, well, I just need you to sign this paperwork. And I thought I was asking like she was going to sign a permission slip and I was going to go off to camp. And that wasn't a permission slip they were willing to sign. And so on my 18th birthday, I cut school, which wasn't a rarity. And I went down to Brooklyn with my recruiter and I looked at a bunch of videos and, you know, the Army likes to make everything look fun. I don't know how jet skis are involved in the military, but they made it look like I was going to have a blast. No pun intended. And so I decided to join the Army as a combat engineer. And the video was awesome. There was explosions and machine guns and everything was awesome. They threw big dollars up. Well, I was 18, so 15 grand looked like $1 million to me. And I just said, you know what? I'm doing it. I signed my name on a dotted line and I committed to 5 years active duty. And I went home that night, my whole family was at my house, because like I said, it was my 18th birthday. And my mom said, hey, the school called, said you didn't go to school today. I said, yeah, I know. And they said, where'd you go? So I went down to Brooklyn. And I had never left my town, so my mother was like, well, what the hell were you doing in Brooklyn? So I went down to Fort Hamilton and I enlisted. And I put my contract down on the table, and I turned around. And in an Italian and Irish household, I have never been able to hear a pin drop. But they didn't say a word. And the only sounds I heard next were my grandmothers, my grandfathers, my mother, and my aunts, and my sister. And everybody basically broke down in tears because at that point the war was really kicking off. And here's their 18-year-old little boy who said he wanted to be a cop, deciding to go off to war. And I remember graduating, and I remember, you know, the 3 weeks or 4 weeks in between graduation and shipping out was like a blur. You know, going away parties and, you know, using my fake ID to have that one last night at the bar, and, you know, deciding I wanted to marry the girl I'd been dating for 3 weeks. And I wanted to be in the Army. And then that day came, my recruiter came and picked me up, and I remember walking out my front door, and it really hit me. And I kind of turned around. I turned around and I walked out the door, and I remember hearing the doors close behind me. And I turned around and I looked, and my mother and my father were standing on the other side of the glass. And I had never felt so far away from them, but so close at the same time. You know, I looked at them and said to myself, you know, I know I'm going to see them after basic, but, you know, I'm looking at my house, and I'm looking at my street, and everything that was important to me, and thought, this is why I'm doing this.
But at the same time, I thought, why the hell did you do this? I could go to college, I could go to the bar, I could do whatever I want to do. But something in me said I had to go. And I remember graduating basic training and my dad coming and my mom coming and everyone saying, you know, we're so proud of you, thank you for your service. But I had never felt like I deserved that because I hadn't done anything yet. Anybody can go through 16 weeks of basic shooter rifle, run a lot, carry a big heavy bag, and then at the end of the day, you get a uniform and a cool patch. Anybody can do that. So that's what I thought. I wasn't special yet. And then I got to, you know, figure out where I was going. And they told me, you're going to the 101st Airborne. And at that point, I was like, oh, pardon my language, oh shit, that's a real unit. And they're gonna fight a real war. And I'm gonna really be a part of it. And I got there, and I was this, you know, 18-year-old kid from New York who bought himself a $40,000 sports car out of basic, and I pulled up in his souped-up little Subaru, and with my New York accent and my New York plates, and everybody was like, where are you from, the Hamptons? Because, and I don't know if you know, but anywhere outside of the Northeast, everyone thinks Long Island is just the Hamptons. So everybody called me Hamptons. That was my nickname. And then one day we got our orders. And I remember that's when it got real. I called my mother and I called my father and I said, Mom and Dad, I got a notice today. And in February I'm leaving for Afghanistan. And my mother lost it. My father, who I've seen cry twice in my life, cried. And I left. And I remember walking up the gangway of the plane and turning around, and they were there to see me off. And I remember turning around and looking at them right before I walked up the steps. And as cliche as this sounds, I thought I was looking at my parents for the last time. Because I'm 18, about to turn 19, scared out of my mind. Then all the news is showing is 2 U.S. service members killed, 4 U.S. service members killed, and I thought that was going to be me. And so I went and I fought, and it was a tough deployment. We lost a lot of good guys, and a lot of us came back hurt. A lot of us came back with visible and invisible scars. And we lost a couple guys when we got back. Guys that couldn't deal with it. They just couldn't handle what had happened. And it's a crazy thing when you come home because you go from a place where there are no rules and there is no decency, there is no humanity. You go from growing up in a beautiful household with amazing people and a supportive family, and you go to a place where the only guys you have are guys that you met a year ago, but you would lay your life on the line in a heartbeat for it. And I wish, as crazy as it is to say, I wish I could go back there and put my life on the line for a few of those guys. Because there's guys that had families that didn't come home. I was 19, I didn't have anything. Why them and not me? You know, at 19 and 20 years old, to think like that is insane. And you know, the word PTSD gets thrown around like a baseball nowadays. Everyone, that's just a stigma. And you know, post-traumatic stress has been around forever. You can have post-traumatic stress from a car accident. You know, but post-traumatic stress is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. And for a 19-year-old, picking up pieces of your friends and watching your friends get killed and having to do the killing is an insane thing. And I don't mean to get graphic or blunt, but war is blunt. And I came home and I didn't really know how to adjust. I was hurt. I hit a roadside bomb in Afghanistan that was 250 pounds. It split my Humvee in half. The transmission and engine crushed me against the 500-pound door, broke my shoulder, broke my ribs, dislocated my hip, broke my kneecap, gave me a massive concussion, knocked out about half of my teeth, and subsequently gave me a traumatic brain injury. I recuperated from that. Most of those injuries, as bad as they sound, I still stayed in country. I refused to go home. And a couple weeks after that, I was shot in the back. And that did a number on my spine. And my career in playing sports and having fun and running and doing everything like that was over. I finished my deployment out, got transferred to a desk job, finished my last couple of years in the service and got home. And when I got home, the VA, as helpful as a lot of their services are, needs an overhaul. And when I got home, they decided, you know, they say laughter is the best medicine, but nobody told the VA that. Because they pump you full of everything from ibuprofen to God knows what. And they decided that I needed an obscene amount of painkillers. And that translated into about a 3-year painkiller addiction. I didn't think I had anything wrong with me. Because they make you feel like you're broken and that they're the only thing that can fix you. So I went along with it. I gained 60, 70 pounds. I didn't do anything. I didn't work. I was living off disability. Played video games, watched war movies. You know, just floated through life. And one day a friend of mine called me because I had found my golf clubs in the garage. And I had gone to the driving range, and a friend of mine said, hey, you know, I work at the VA, and there's this guy that runs this PGA program. It's for vets. They go down there and they play and they teach you and you get a couple lessons, and it's a great thing. You should check it out. And kind of, you know, kind of like Chris and Ray were saying, they were, you know, she kept asking me, and I was in a position where I didn't really want to leave the house. But finally one day I did, and I showed up to Eisenhower Park, and Kelly was there, Mike was there, Charlie, and Jeff, and Paul, and all the guys from the whole program were there. And I remember just everyone being so nice, and so accepting, and so non-judgmental. Nobody looked at me like a broken piece of machinery. They looked at me like a person. And it had been a long time since somebody had done that. And nobody asked me what happened to you. Nobody said sorry. Nobody apologized. You know, they said thank you for your service the minute I walked up, and that was the last time I heard it. And that's a good thing. Because they didn't make you feel like you were some, you know, sideshow act that everyone had to feel sorry for. It made you feel like a person again. And it chokes me up even thinking about it, because at that point I didn't feel like a person. I didn't feel like I was meant to be here. And Kelly and Mike and all of them did it. I couldn't wait to leave the house to go to Eisenhower Park and play with these guys that I'd never met before, that are now best friends, guys that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. They are my best friends. I talk to them more than half the guys I went to high school with. And at the end of the day, I knew I had a purpose. Because I wasn't a bad golfer, so I actually got to help teach some of these guys. And all of a sudden, I was doing something with my life. And then Charlie, God bless him, called me up and said, hey man, you know, I have a slot as an assistant pro teaching, you know, summer camps and assisting in lessons. You interested? Obviously, my first one, what did he pay? But honestly, I couldn't care less. I went there, and I got to teach these 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, and I felt better than I had felt in years. And that's the PGA Hope program. You know, that video is great, but I'm telling you firsthand, it saved my life. Because there were days where I sat in my room and would stare out the window, and right across the street is my neighbor's flagpole. And I would sit in my room and I would stare at that flag, and I'd think about all my buddies. I'd think about the guys that weren't here. And I think about how I'm never going to be a successful. I used to look at country clubs like this and go, God, I wish one day I could be that successful to where I could do something like this, where I could have, you know, this sort of, you guys have a little bit of that camaraderie. You have your guys, you have your playing partners, and you have the guys that you guys hang out and smoke cigars with, and You guys come here and have dinner as families. That's camaraderie. And that's what this program gave me again. It gave me a feeling of not being alone. Because I'll tell you, when you feel alone, and as blunt and again as blunt and insensitive as this sounds, when you're alone and you're staring out the window and you feel like you got nobody with you, I used to stare at my 9mm on my nightstand and think that's a way out. That's just how it is. That's 22 veterans a day think that way. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. Whether it be intentional drug overdoses, gunshot wounds, anything. And this program saves lives. It doesn't have to be medical. It doesn't have to be psychological. It's a game. But this game is saving lives. And you guys have an opportunity here where you're here and you get to meet great people like Kelly. Kelly's an angel. That woman single-handedly changes lives on a daily basis. And probably doesn't get the recognition she deserves, but she doesn't want it. But we try and force it on her. And Mike, her husband, has been through so much and literally will give you the shirt off his back if you ask for it. And probably if you don't ask for it. But, I stand here and I look out at this room and I think of that choice I made almost 10 years ago. And you guys are the reason I went over there. The reason I went over there is so that we can live in a country that has stuff like this. Some people might say this is ostentatious and over the top. We don't need stuff, but we do. This is an outlet for people that work their asses off to come down and have a good time and live a life that they've worked so hard to achieve. And you have a program like this that is taking veterans and giving them the opportunity to put that purpose and that drive and that desire back into their lives so that they too can enjoy something like this one day. And if you get anything out of what I've told you, I'm basically begging you to help support this program because my brothers need it. And there's guys all over this country that don't get the help that they deserve and don't get the outlet and don't get the love and the support. There's people in this room tonight who have lost loved ones. And to them, there's no amount of I'm sorry's or thank you for their service that will ever make that pain go away. But knowing that the brothers of their loved ones are being taken care of might help a little bit. And especially with a program like Folds of Honor, helping the children of fallen soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen. It's incredible. We have people that are doing this on their own time, at no benefit to themselves. That's the caliber of people that are in this room. And those are the caliber of people that you're able to help. So, if you garner anything from what I say tonight, help us. And help these people help us. Because giving us back the lives that we so dearly miss, maybe it'll fill up the karma bank. Maybe one day you'll just look at one of us and go, I know I helped that guy. Because I can damn sure say that anybody in this room that's made a donation before, I would drop to my knees and thank you because you saved my life. Thank you.
Right hand, left heel. Chris, Brent, and I have a little, Chris, I have a little present for you. Sitting behind my desk, I was giving you the Folds of Honor, some script right there.
get you out of your cowboy clothes and get you some title stuff, right?
The next person I'd like to bring up is our other co-chairperson of this event that I mentioned earlier, Brendan DeLuey. While many of us in the golf industry know Brendan as one of the premier Titleist representatives, salesmen in the country, Brendan was in Connecticut for many years, just recently moved to Pittsburgh. But this event means so much to him. He drove yesterday to be back with us for this evening and tomorrow. Before his days as this consummate Titleist man, Brendan served our country and was a captain in the U.S. Army Infantry Scout helicopter pilot and served in Operation Desert Storm. His service also has propelled him to help all of his brothers, and Brendan really was at the genesis of the support for Folds of Honor when he started the Folds of Honor raffle in the New York metro area, which then has morphed into Ray's event and this event here tonight. Brendan has been the sort of grandfather of over $1.5 probably $1 million donated to these wonderful charities over time. It gives me great pleasure to bring up Brendan DeLuey.
So no microphone, I get to follow Rick. Really? Really, Chris? I didn't change the rotation had I known that. Rick, awesome job. Not a public speaker. That was impressive to say the least. Impressive to say the least. I would really like to take this opportunity to thank Chris and Ray for the absolutely incredible job that they've done with not only PGA Hope, but with the Folds of Honor. If not for true patriots like this, the children of our fallen and wounded, and veterans in need, they would not be able to realize their dreams. I would also like to thank the Patterson Club, the members of the Patterson Club, and the members of Rolling Hills who were in attendance, who without their support, this event would not be possible, especially for the 5th year. This is great. Thank you. On a slightly more serious note, or a major more serious note, 15 years ago, as we all know, September 11th, 2001, the most devastating terrorist attack on the United States occurred when 4 planes crashed into the North and South Towers, the Pentagon, and a field outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, I'm sure everyone in this room knew someone or knows someone who was affected by that tragedy. Such a cowardly act. It was certainly one of the darkest days in our history. But in the following days, a ray of light shone through those dark clouds. It shone brightly as it showed our resolve, and it showed the American spirit, which is defined by our ability to reach out and help others under unthinkable circumstances and odds. Since 9/11, U.S. military casualty figures show that over 58,000 U.S. servicemen and women have fallen or have been combat wounded in this war against terrorism. At this time, I would please ask for all of our veterans in the audience to please rise and be recognized for your service. sit here tonight at this very moment, there are several 100,000 U.S. servicemen and women downrange, in harm's way, protecting our way of life and the freedoms we enjoy every day. I respectfully ask everyone at this time to please join me in a moment of silence, remembering those who have lost their lives during 9/11 attacks, our soldiers who protect our freedoms, and our first responders. Thank you so much. On page 4 of the brochures that are in front of you, there's a lot of detail about the Folds of Honor. And so I'm not going to get into that whole bit of details because you guys can read that at your leisure. The mission of the Folds of Honor is simple. It's really simple. Honor their sacrifice by honoring their legacy. By the end of this 2016 school semester, the Folds of Honor will have achieved over 13,000 scholarships. Scholarship being defined as $5,000 per student. Those really sharp with a pencil, that's $65 million awarded in scholarships. I feel, Major Dan Rooney feels, that the greatest gift you can ever give a child is an education. I know that because I'm paying dearly for that with my 2 children in college. This year in particular, the need is great. Last year, for the first time, there was not enough funds to fulfill all the scholarship needs of the children that were in need. On behalf of Major Dan Rooney, it's my honor to introduce his video on how he started the Folds of Honor and the Folds of Honor mission.
There's a term I love in life, synchronicity. I define that as chance with a purpose. And one fateful night, my life would change forever. I was flying from Chicago here to Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was United Flight 664. Finally get on this airplane, I walk through first class, and let's see, this kid catches me off guard because he's a corporal sitting in dress army green. And I go sit in coach, and about an hour and a half or so later, we land in Grand Rapids, Michigan. As we pull up to the gate, the captain comes over to the PA and says that we have an American hero on board. And my mind immediately jumps to this kid in first class, right? And it's like, what did he do? I'd just gotten back from my second tour of duty in Iraq, flying the F-16, and he continues, the captain, by informing us that we are carrying the remains of Corporal Brock Buckland on this flight. And his identical twin brother, Corporal Brad Buckland, was in first class and has brought him those 7,000 miles home. Captain makes another request that everybody stay in their seats until his remains are removed from the right cargo hold. And that night I watched The Other Side of War. As I looked out on the tarmac, the Bucklands on the darkest night of their lives. The thing that really got me though was his 4-year-old son. Sat right below the cargo ramp as that American flag draped coffin inched out. And the finality of the sacrifice hit me. The reality is that this young boy would never play catch with his dad again. He would never be tucked in at night. And that term freedom isn't free didn't mean anything until I witnessed that. And as the ceremony finishes itself up, you know, I wipe away my tears, right, and I grab my backpack and I look back to the airplane, only to see that more than half the plane had gotten off. No place to go, except that blanket of freedom we'll all sleep under each and every night, courtesy of 1% of this country that suits up every day, willing to defend and pay the ultimate sacrifice for the other 99%. And that was my moment of synchronicity. I knew with every fiber of my being that God had called me on a mission.
thanks to Major Dan, he is without a doubt the most influential, unselfish, caring, giving person I have ever met. He's unbelievable. At this time, I would like to introduce one of the strongest women I have ever met in my life. Please join me in welcoming Tricia English, whose husband, Sean English, was killed in Iraq in 2006. Tricia.
Many people have someone in their life that has Many people have someone in their life that has influenced them greatly. Someone who has influenced me throughout my life has been my mom. My mom is my hero. My mother's trait of courage has been particularly present since the day following the death of my dad in Iraq in 2006. Instead of focusing on herself, she gave up all her time to make sure that we, her 3 children, were doing okay. Most women in my mom's position would have taken some time alone for themselves to grieve, but my mom did not. We were her main priority all the time. She had to take on the role of being a mother and a father to 3 little boys. She has never missed a single one of our games and makes it to each school event, even though she is always bombarded with other things to do. Instead of asking the usual why me question after a tragedy, my mom asked, what's next? More importantly, she didn't lie down in the presence of such a horrific event, but instead rose up and accepted it as a new challenge. This trait has influenced me to never quiver inside of fear or tragedy, but instead to push through. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed, she is always trying to improve our lives and make us happy. She is always asking us how our day was and staying up late to help us with any project. She has given up so much of her own life for my brothers and I, so that we can make it to our games and practices and to other things that are important to us. There has never been a night I have gone hungry or gone to bed sad. She stands 5 foot 3 inches tall, but acts as if she is 7 feet tall. By examining my mom's 3 traits, it's easy to see how her boldness, courage, and the way she takes care of others has turned her into the hero she is and is helping me become the person I am today.
Sorry, folks, we had a little technical difficulty with the video. We're going to bring Tricia up, and then after she speaks, we're going to try and replay that video so you see the video. It's very, very powerful.
easy there for a minute video. Well, like I said, I maybe got off a little bit easy. Video is new and hard to watch your children talk about you. So good evening. I'm a little choked up tonight, and I have to tell you, Ricky, to all the people that are helping you, and your brothers and sisters in arms, thank you from this widow as well. Because 3 years ago, my husband's driver, the person who was with him in Iraq, lost his battle with what he called the demons and the voices. And not voices as in strange voices, but he couldn't stop the chatter in his head. And he left me a message, and he committed suicide. So thank you very much to those of you who are doing this program, so that my children don't have to lose another piece or connection to their dad. I am truly humbled that I have been asked to speak here tonight. I'm also extremely grateful because it affords me the opportunity to thank all of you for your support, and to those of you who have contributed to the Folds of Honor, for being wing men and wing women, as Dan calls them. And I'm honored to be representing the thousands of families who, like mine, have been truly blessed by the Folds of Honor. Because in 2006, I am not someone who would have been invited to speak at an event like this. I was a mental health therapist, turned stay-at-home mom to 3 little boys, Nathan, Noah, and Austin. And I was also the Army wife to Captain Sean English. Sean and I had met in college at Ohio State. I noticed him right away when he came into the classroom. It was very different than the other guys there. In fact, I said he looked like a man among boys. And as we got to know each other, I soon learned why. Immediately following high school, Sean had enlisted in the Army, and he had spent 5 years. During that time, he served in 2nd Ranger Battalion with the 7th Group, and he deployed to Honduras, Haiti, and in support of Operation Desert Storm. It's pretty clear why he was a little different than those other boys. So Sean and I started dating, and it was during that time that he said to me, "I miss serving something bigger than me." And that's one of the reasons I fell in love with him. So he decided to accept an ROTC scholarship for the last 2 years of college. And it was through that program that he was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. So we married, we began our family, and we embarked on our military adventure. In fact, we used to joke and call it our military Mayberry, is what we were building. So who was Sean English? Sean English was a soldier's soldier. He was a combination of a tough exterior with a really tender heart. And he had a deep sense of pride and obligation to his country that I think was a little more common in my dad or my grandfather's generation. And family was everything to him. He was adopted, he was in the foster care system and was not adopted until he was 7. And so Sean, family was everything to him. And family did not just mean his family. Family meant anyone who came into contact with him. So we always had a house full. And he took really, really good care of his soldiers and their families. And he lived by the motto, do the harder right over the easier wrong. In fact, he lived by that so much that I actually have that engraved on his headstone. As an officer, Sean was a deep sea diver. He was one of only 126 in the entire Army at the time of his death. In 2006, Sean was nearing the end of his command time at the Army unit of the Naval Diving and Salvage Training Center in Panama City Beach, Florida. And in January of that year, he was approached and asked to be an advisor on a military transition team embedded with the 9th Division Iraqi Army. His leadership and his skills from his enlisted days were needed. And without hesitation and following a whirlwind change of command and throwing our Christmas decorations up in the attic, he deployed to Iraq in early February 2006. On the evening of December 3rd, 2006, I was busy packaging Christmas presents that the boys had made for Sean and his Iraqi counterparts when I received a knock on the door. And as 2 uniformed men delivered a paragraph that began with, on behalf of the President of the United States and the Department of the Army, we regret to inform you, life as I knew it ceased to exist. Mayberry had imploded. At the time of his death, Sean was 35 years old, and our 3 little boys were 3, 5, and 7. To be quite honest, I don't remember very much from the days that followed. My memory is pretty much small snippets and small snapshots of that time. But there's one snapshot that's very vivid still to this day in my head, and that was me standing over Sean's casket in the freezing cold and the feeling of panic that came over me. Because at that moment, it hit me. It was all on me now. These 3 little boys had me. I was now responsible, 100% totally responsible for them. On December 3rd, when Sean was killed, an insurgent detonated an explosively formed penetrator into the side of his vehicle. Despite Sean's men providing emergency care at the scene, Sean died 4 hours later. But he was in and out of consciousness and was able to give his men his final orders. And that was tell Trisha and the boys that I love them. When I stood there over his casket, I had such pain. I still have no word to describe that feeling of panic, because it wasn't just about losing Sean. It was this overwhelming fear, absolute fear, because I was now responsible to provide for their future. I was now responsible to raise them and really raise 3 little boys to be faithful, bold, courageous men, because I knew that's what God intended them to be. I wanted them to be like their dad. A month following Sean's death, I received his belongings and tucked away in a place he knew I would eventually find it. And there was a letter addressed to me that began with, if you're reading this, things did not go according to plan. He went on to detail exactly what he wanted for those boys. And although a little bit of my panic was relieved, it still was on me. And one of the things that he and I had always agreed on was education. Sean and I knew that an education was the one thing that could never be taken away from you. It's the one thing that you carry with you, no matter where you go, no matter what you lose, you always have your education. We want that for our boys. I still want that for my boys. I want them to realize their dreams and pursue their passions, and I really hope they use it to go forward and do something good. Leave this world a little bit better than it is now. I learned about Folds of Honor through my dear friend, Ginger Gilbert Ravella, who I think some of you have met. She and I were widowed 1 week apart from each other. And she explained to me Dan's mission. She introduced me to Dan. And I thought, what a unique concept, because the general consensus is that families like mine are completely taken care of, and that my children's education is completely taken care of. So the reality is, they're just not. And I was very grateful for Dan's vision and very grateful for, as he calls it, his synchronicity. So the following year, all 3 of my boys were awarded future youth scholarships that'll be ready for them when it's time to come to go to college the first year, which happens to be next year at this point. I can't explain to you, especially then, what that felt like to me, because that weight, that fear and panic, I still was solely responsible for them, but all of a sudden, I realized that someone else wanted to help carry the load with me. I wasn't alone. People that didn't know my kids, people that didn't know me, people that didn't know Sean. That was pretty powerful for this mom. It has been nearly 10 years that I've been on this journey. And in those years, I've experienced some of the worst life moments that can happen. But I've also experienced some of the most beautiful moments. Because aside from the financial assistance that Folds of Honor provides, the boys and I had an extended family. Because when those uniformed men showed up at the doorstep, we were no longer part of the club. 10 plus years of being part of the club, and all of a sudden, everything that kind of dictated our life, where we lived, everything was gone. And so, although our friends were still there, they would move on. So Folds of Honor provided this extended family for the boys and I, another place to belong. And really, I soon learned that it was a group of tremendous individuals that will stop at nothing to support us, and more importantly, that help my boys stay focused on their future. Through speaking on behalf of Folds of Honor, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of pretty amazing people. And I always have the same question: why? Why are you supporting my children? It's that unwavering dedication that people have. And I've asked that question. And it wasn't until a pro from South Carolina explained it real simple to me. And he said, his name is Billy Sampson from Old Tabby Links, and he said to me, I live in the greatest country in the world, and I live my dream every day. I teach and play golf for a living. Your husband sacrificed his life and his future so that I could live that dream. It is my duty to do this for his children. That brief conversation impacted me deeply and impacted my children as well. It showed them that everyone has their part to play. Because although my children are benefactors from this organization, I make it clear to them that they have an obligation to help push it forward. Because tonight, someone's being notified. Tonight, a widow is beginning her walk that I started 10 years ago. I feel that it's my obligation and my children's obligation to share the Folds of Honor mission and our story, as painful as it can be, so that these things are in place for her and her children. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from Sean when he was alive, but I think I've learned more from his death. I've learned that this tragedy will always be a part of my story and the story of my boys. But it's not going to be the whole story. Sean didn't want that. In fact, he made that real clear in that letter. His last written words to me were, live your life. Be happy. But make sure you take care of each other. And what I've learned from you, Brendan, and Chris, everybody, what I've learned has inspired me to take nouns like honor, love, caring, and sacrifice and turn them into action verbs. And it's taught me that bravery and courage aren't anything unless you do something with them. I want to thank everyone in this room for your support of Folds of Honor and the other programs, because that means you got up and did something. I'm honored to be representing the thousands of families like mine and the thousands coming behind us. And then and the anniversary of the day that Sean was actually in the Pentagon on 9/11. But it certainly set into motion the trajectory of my life and my children's life. The change in that. So I think it's extra emotional for me today. But I want to thank you because today, as you heard, over 13,000 scholarships have been awarded. And that's 13,000 futures that have been invested in. I miss Sean every day. When I watch the boys, I think about what he's missing, although I know he sees them. But what he's done is it's strengthened my resolve to make sure that Sean's legacy is as impactful as his life was. Thank you for helping me do that.
One last important thing here. One reason I have Chris on the committee is because we had one Patriot fan, one Giants fan. Now we have two Giants fans, and we're located here between New York and Boston. I'd like to remind Brendan who won the Super Bowl twice. We got a couple of hats here for you. And if you need more, we have more.